Hi everyone. So if you watched the previous video, we were talking about Wizard 87, where they talk about the top 10 most dangerous villains, which I wanted to do because we just talked about the psychology of super villains, and some of the villains that are on this list were mentioned in that article. So I thought it was a good tie-in to this article. So far in the list, we had Bullseye at number 10, Sabretooth at number 9, Carnage at number 8, Joker at number 7, Ra's al Ghul at 6, Doomsday at 5, Thanos at 4, which a lot of you thinking just basically movie universe would think, well, why wouldn't he be, number 1? Well, you're going to find out. And as we talked about, Joker was part of the psychology of supervillains that we talked about. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, the last 3 on the list were part of that article too. So they're pretty big villains, I would say, in their respective universes. So number 3 is Magneto. And you can see 2 is Lex Luthor. But let's talk about Magneto first. So, some of you maybe don't know really who he is. I mean, if you watch the other video, you know more about him. But you might think, well, he's just an X-Men villain. Why would he be number 3? Well, okay. So, he actually, he has control over magnetism, any metallic object, electromagnetic pulses, waves, iron in a person's bloodstream. And, I mean, the electromagnetic waves, the Earth actually is made up of those. Like, he can control that. So, if you think about the implications of that, I mean, really, he can go bigger than he has before. He just, I guess, has chosen not to. So, I mean, they talk about, for example, he destroyed and sank an entire Russian nuclear sub with everybody on it. And one of the most, I would say, important storylines, or most notable for him, is the Fatal Attraction storyline in the 90s, because, like I said, we are in the 90s. And this is where he, having failed with Asteroid N, his asteroid sanctuary for mutants in space, he starts another one. It's called Avalon, and it's a sanctuary for mutants, which really it's just Cable's ship that he's taken over and outfitted with Shi'ar technology. But because of what happened to Asteroid N, the government had put in place, the Magneto protocols, where they put a satellite, like satellites all the way around the Earth. And once they heard about Avalon, they activated those satellites to create a shield around the world to protect the world from Magneto. And what he did, because he heard about this and was, not happy, what he did is sent an electromagnetic pulse through the world and destroyed their, wreaked havoc with their technology and stuff. So, okay, I don't know if you guys remember this TV show, Fallen Skies, I think it was called. It was on TBS or something. And I forgot exactly the premise, but the world had no power, no electricity, no way to get it back. Basically, we're back in the Dark Ages, so to speak. The Magneto could potentially do that. He could disrupt all the systems in the world, wipe it out, then, we'd go back to the Dark Ages. I mean, granted, we could probably get it back, but it would, it would take a while, and in the meantime, it would mess up a lot of things. A lot of the countries' infrastructures, defense, systems, everything, including, flying. You know, you have to have radar and all this stuff to know where you're going and where you're flying to and etc. and make sure you're not in the way of anything. So potentially he could do a lot of damage with that. This also is when he ripped out Wolverine's skeleton, like just pulled it out of his body. Like he was like, I'm done with you guys. I'm done with you X-Men. Because they came to stop him, you know, and Avalon attacked him basically. And this is also the point where Charles Xavier wiped his mind and sent him into a coma. And that mind wipe was the birth or the starting place of Onslaught. I don't know if you know about Onslaught. It's like the merging of Charles Xavier's, I would say, darker tendencies. Like he, you know, he's the most powerful psychic in the world, and Magneto's like his psyche, and it created Onslaught, in which was this huge villain. It was like a huge crossover in the 90s, and Onslaught killed all the heroes like Fantastic Four, the Avengers. I mean, like I said, nobody ever stays dead, but you know, for a little bit they were killed, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, how did that happen? What happened?" Anyway, but you know, so the whole storyline started that. So that's probably because he was a really like. The thing is, he was a really bad guy in the 90s because at one point. He had actually ran Xavier's School for the Gifted. And so people were starting to talk about, well, he's not such a bad guy. He's not such a villain. So this was an attempt to push him back towards being a villain. Like you heard Magneto and you thought villain. So basically, you know, Bullseye, no problem. Sabretooth, he could potentially rip out his skeleton too, and even though he's a mutant and Magneto's all about saving mutants, Sabretooth has killed so many mutants that, you know, probably Magneto's like, no, I'm not going to spare you. Carnage, basically, they had an interesting theory for how you would defeat Carnage. Put him in a force bubble, basically propel him into the atmosphere so that he reached, like, so fast that he reached sonic boom status. You know, that would definitely disintegrate him. Joker, you know, not really a contest. You know, Ra's al Ghul, basically he could just bring down the entire fortress on him. Doomsday, put him in a force bubble, surprise when he pops out of it, wrap him in metal and shoot him out into space. Like, he's not my problem, he's somebody else's problem, which is basically what Thanos did too. Thanos, he could disrupt, you know, whatever systems he had, including the gauntlet and, you know, the high-tech cannons that Thanos uses and stuff. So that's how they said he would beat, you know, all the previous villains. Okay, so Luthor. Like I said, we talked about Luthor in the Psychology of Super-Villains. And here's an ad for eBay. Do you remember when eBay was first starting? And it was super popular. I remember. I used to be on there all the time. But now it doesn't seem it doesn't seem as prevalent, I guess. I mean, now you have Amazon and all those other services. So anyway, off topic. So basically, he's number 2 because he's the smartest guy in the universe. Well, in the DC universe. You know, his tech is everywhere. It's in every household. It's the government, you know, uses his weapons. His satellites are in the air. So pretty much, you know, he controls, like, everything. But, you know, of course, his main objective is to destroy Superman because, well, he's obsessed, kind of. Because before Superman came along, he was the best thing ever, according to himself. So Bullseye, he, you know, no problem. Sabretooth, he'd probably like I said, this is all speculation on the staff of the wizard staff, but they have some good points. That he would probably want to study Sabretooth, so we'd probably capture him, drug him, take him back to the lab to try to figure out how to use him to destroy Superman. Carnage, separate him from, Cletus with Sonics, take him back to his lab, trying to figure out how he can use him to destroy Superman. Joker, basically he could say, hey, he needs to be in Arkham, he needs to be locked away, and then some papers would appear that say he needs a lobotomy. I don't know if you guys remember those, but they would basically stick needles in your brain and basically immobilize you, because they didn't have very good mental health back then. They didn't even really know about, I think we're just starting to really kind of figure out mental health, and that it's an important issue, and that we need to actually do something about it, not just that it's a real thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry. Basically, Ra's al Ghul, Luthor has way more resources than him. Even though he has his League of Assassins, Luthor just, has way more resources. Doomsday. It says basically, and I can see Luthor doing this, Doomsday is a threat, so he would get all the other heroes together to take Doomsday out for him, and then whatever heroes are left, basically take them out. Oh gosh. So basically, as we talked about with Thanos, he does have the comic book Thanos. He does have a bit of self-doubt and insecurity, and whereas Luthor has none of that, and he's a master manipulator, so he would basically out-manipulate Thanos, and even before he realized what happened. And then versus Magneto, this one was interesting. I was like, I can see Luthor doing that. He would pretend to be a mutant to gain Magneto's trust, basically get into his inner circle, poison him, and then kill him with non-metal weapons. Oh, like I said. Okay, so number 1. We talked about this person in the Psychology of Super-Villains also. Does anyone have a guess? Okay, like I said, I was surprised, but it's Dr. Doom. And some of you may be thinking, well, Dr. Doom, he's just like a Fantastic Four villain, isn't he? So, and that's kind of what my first thought was after rereading this, because I had kind of forgotten about all the crazy things he had done. He actually stole the power of Galactus once. He stole the power of the Beyonder, making him the 3rd most powerful entity in the Marvel Universe. And the Beyonder is from Secret Wars. Another complicated story. It's a really cool story, though. But it's complicated. Basically, it was cool because it pitted the supervillains and heroes against each other, because Beyonder was basically playing this kind of cosmic game of chess because he wanted to see what would happen because he had that much power. He created a whole separate world for them to battle on called Battle World. For real, that's what it was called. Anyway, so he stole the power of the Beyonder. He actually managed to transfer his consciousness into another body right before his body died. He actually also is second only to Doctor Strange in the Mystic Arts. He actually competed against Doctor Strange for the title of Sorcerer Supreme. He lost, but kind of just barely. And we talked about Doom being obsessed with his mother. Well, since Doctor Strange won, he had to grant Dr. Doom a boon, basically like one request, one thing. And he asked Doctor Strange to help him get his mom's soul out of hell. Like I said, the whole obsessed with his mother thing. So basically, Dr. Doom is also a genius. He's the ruler of his own country. I mean, it's a tiny country, but still, he's a ruler of his own country. I mean, you don't get to be ruler of a country without being, pretty feared or being able to manipulate people, or a combination of both, since he was not elected. So Bullseye, he wouldn't even worry about Bullseye, basically. Sabretooth, Doom has his armor, which is actually on par with Iron Man's armor, which, I forgot about that too. So, no contest there. Carnage, Doom, basically, because Batman kind of has his protocols on how he would take out villains and how he would take out heroes. Doom keeps up with like every superhero and villain on the planet, so he knows about Carnage's weakness. Because I mean, it's it's pretty, like, everyone knows about it, but it just, if you're in the heat of the moment and you don't know you're facing Carnage, it's hard to have that sonic disruptor ready when you don't know you need it. But of course, Doom would know he would need it, so yeah. Doom has no patience. He's Doom. He's very full of himself. Kind of like Luther, but in a different way, I guess. Because, anyway. So he wouldn't have any time for Joker and his mindless, he would probably call him a buffoon, because he calls a lot of people buffoons. Because he thinks that, you're not as smart as him, so you're a buffoon. Doomsday. Oh, yeah, I forgot, yeah. Dr. Doom has he invented a time machine. I mean, to have that in your arsenal, too. What he would do is drop Doomsday at, like, the very end of time, which is what Superman did to finally, kind of like Superman did to finally defeat Doomsday. So, I mean, you have a time machine, you can just go back and redo whatever you did wrong. Wow, that would be crazy. I mean, I'm kind of, I don't know. I mean, anyway. So, Thanos, we talked about his self-doubt and insecurity. Doom doesn't really have any of that, so no contest. Magneto. Okay, so this was interesting. They talked about how Doom had already come up with a way to neutralize mutants' powers back in Uncanny X-Men 145, 147. So I remember that, like, I have those issues. And it's interesting because, so basically, the X-Men villain Arcade gets captured by Doom, taken to Doom's sanctuary. Miss Locke, his assistant, wants him back. So she, calls upon the X-Men to help her get him back. And what's interesting is that it's there. I mean, I swear it's there, but it's weird because, like, this is 147, and it basically, Doom ends up encasing Storm in, like, an organic metal, which is a bad idea because Storm's claustrophobic. And so that whole we did it before, can we do it again? They're talking about the whole Phoenix thing. Look, she even looks like the Phoenix, like having her go out of control. And that's why it's like Rogue Storm. And this is before Rogue joined the team, which I found interesting too. Anyway, so between Doom and Storm, there's like this weird, I will say flirtation. It's definitely a flirtation, like one of respect flirtation. It's a little weird. I mean, and they end parting on, like, okay, neutral terms. Like, I'm not gonna, mess with you if you don't mess with me again, sort of thing. I mean, like I said, and then, remember, Dr. Doom was also in the New Mutants. Remember the Return of the Gladiators? We talked about that video too, and Doom was a part of that. So my experiences with Dr. Doom, since I wasn't like a huge Fantastic Four fan, I was, mostly X-Men. we're kind of limited to more of those experiences, which he doesn't seem that powerful. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal, you know. So it was just, you know, that was my experience of him, you know, growing up. So I didn't really think he was all that, you know, like I would not have picked him for #1 for sure, like based on those experiences. But I had forgotten all the other stuff he had done, you know. Well, of course, those were, like this was during the 80s, like the Uncanny X-Men 147 and the New Mutants and stuff. Anyway, so yeah, he's done a bunch of stuff that I had totally forgotten about. So, and they also put in like people that, oh yeah, versus Lex Luthor. Totally forgot. So even though Lex is super brilliant, has tons of resources, Doom has an edge in terms of mystic arts because Lex, you know, so Doom has science and sorcery, whereas Lex just kind of has science, even though he's really good at it, but he doesn't have both. So that would give Doom the edge. So they have, you know, people that didn't make the list, wicked wannabes. Look at who didn't make the list and why. Apocalypse, which I was like, what? He's, you know, super powerful X-Men villain, but they're like, well, he's had 80,000 years to conquer the world and has done nothing. I'm like, well, okay, fair point. Baron Zemo, he, before recently, like in the 90s, because that's where we are, before he started actually being a villain, like a leader of the Thunderbolts and all that stuff, he was just kind of mediocre. Brainiac, they said he hasn't really, for all his brains, done anything. Green Goblin, you know, fun to watch him fly around, throw pumpkins, but they're like, he's not really that big of a threat. Juggernaut, you know, they're saying it's either him or Doomsday, and Doomsday would beat Juggernaut. So I'm like, well, that's kind of respect to Juggernaut there a little bit. Kingpin. Oh, they said a poor man's Lex Luthor, only fatter. That's so mean. Oh. Oh, anyway, Red Skull, you know, he hasn't accomplished what he set out to. Taskmaster, he's, you know, he's the guy that can master any form of like physical combat or weapons, but really he's more about making money. Venom, you know, Carnage is much more dangerous, and Venom is sometimes like an anti-hero and stuff, so, you know, that's why he's not on the list. So I have a couple more things I want to talk about, and so I think I will end this video right here, and that way, you know, you guys have, like, if you don't want to watch this next part 3, you don't have to, because we've already talked about the, you know, the most dangerous villains, but, you know, if you want to, there's going to be some more interesting stuff. It'll probably be a quicker, shorter video, but I just wanted to end it here just in case you're like, well, I just wanted to find out who was #1 and that was it. So, so I hope you'll join me for the next one. We're going to cast the Marvel Monsters movie. We're going to talk about Lara Croft movie. We're going to talk about Wizard Half. Yeah, that's the thing. We're going to talk about the really, like, crazy, interesting story behind the character Angela. I mean, honestly, you'll be like, wait, what? I didn't know that. So, I hope you'll join me for the next video. Until then, bye.